Years ago, an airplane took off and simply vanished, only to be rediscovered much later hidden beneath thick vines and shadows. Deep within its decaying shell were not just worn-out seats and rusted metal, but something so eerie that the discovery left everyone in disbelief. What secret had the jungle kept hidden for all these years? What could be so unsettling that even experienced investigators struggled to believe their eyes? This is no ordinary crash tale. It is a story with an unexpected, dark twist. It all began as what should have been a routine flight, a journey under clear skies with skilled pilots and hopeful passengers. The mid-sized plane carried families, business travelers, and crew members, each with their own dreams, unaware of the grim fate that awaited them. The flight took off smoothly from its departure city, with every detail following plan, until somewhere over a remote stretch of dense jungle, the aircraft simply disappeared without any distress signals or emergency calls. One moment it was present, and the next it was gone. Panic set in among air traffic controllers who desperately tried to establish contact, and as hours turned into days, search and rescue teams combed through potential crash sites. Helicopters scanned vast canopies, boats checked nearby rivers, and ground teams struggled through rough terrain, but despite their relentless efforts, no wreckage was found. It was as if the plane had melted into thin air. Families clung to hope, dreaming of survivors. But as weeks turned into months and months into years, the search was eventually abandoned. The plane was declared lost, its passengers presumed dead, and the case faded into the realm of unsolved mysteries, leaving behind countless unanswered questions and shattered hearts. Then, decades later, something hidden deep in the jungle was uncovered that would change everything. For years, the fate of the missing plane had stood as one of aviation's biggest enigmas. Investigators had long closed the case. Families had grieved, and the world had moved on. But deep in an uncharted jungle, nature had kept its secrets safe. A team of explorers, driven by curiosity and adventure, embarked on a mission to document the untouched landscapes of a vast, unexplored rainforest, a region famous for its towering trees, winding rivers, and an eerie silence that stretched for miles. This remote area was rarely visited by people, a land seemingly forgotten by time. Leading the group was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, an experienced jungle explorer with a passion for unveiling the unknown. Accompanying her were a biologist, a filmmaker, and several skilled survivalists, all ready to confront the dangers hidden within the thick wilderness. Armed with machetes, backpacks filled with supplies, and modern cameras to record every moment, they set out on what was meant to be a 3-week trek through the jungle. The air was heavy with humidity. The constant buzz of insects filled their ears, and every step felt like a deeper plunge into nature's untouched realm. Yet, as they advanced, unusual events began to occur. The lively jungle sometimes felt eerily silent. Shadows moved unpredictably among the tall trees, and the team couldn't shake the unsettling feeling of being watched. Soon, the first sign of trouble appeared. A strange metal object partially buried beneath layers of thick vines and fallen leaves caught their attention. Brushing away dirt and tangled roots, they uncovered a piece of rusted, unidentified wreckage. At first, they suspected it might be part of an old military vehicle or the remnants of an abandoned research outpost. However, as they continued their search, more fragments emerged: twisted metal, broken glass, and even clear parts of airplane seats. Their hearts began to race as they exchanged glances, wondering if they had indeed stumbled upon the remains of the long-lost plane. With a quiet determination, Dr. Mitchell urged, "We need to keep going." Renewed by her words, the team pressed onward, following a trail of debris deeper into the jungle. After many hours of navigating through dense foliage, they finally arrived at the site. Hidden under a canopy of towering trees and overtaken by time, the wreckage of an airplane lay before them. The fuselage was mostly intact, though draped in moss and tangled vines. The nose had been crushed in a violent impact, and the wings were missing, likely torn off by the force of the crash. A heavy, almost oppressive silence descended over the group. For decades, people had speculated about the plane's fate. Search teams had scoured thousands of miles seeking answers. Yet here it was, concealed in plain sight and forgotten by the world. The explorers paused, sharing uncertain looks. What if there were survivors inside? The thought sent shivers through them. Cautiously, Dr. Mitchell stepped forward and reached for the cold, corroded metal of the airplane's door. Although the jungle had begun to reclaim it, the door still stood, weathered but strangely intact. That was when they noticed something even more disturbing. The door was not completely closed. It hung slightly ajar, as if left that way on purpose. A deep sense of dread swept over the group. Who or what might be inside? The plane stood there like a ghost from the past, its battered exterior silently telling a story hidden beneath layers of vines, moss, and decay. Even though nature had tried to engulf it, the wreckage refused to vanish. As the team circled the plane, they noted unsettling details. The front was crumpled like paper. One wing lay snapped off just a few yards away, and the tail was twisted unnaturally, partially buried under dirt and foliage. But the door, still hanging slightly open, was the most alarming. With his heart pounding, Dr. Mitchell grabbed the handle, took a deep breath, and slowly pulled the door open. It creaked on its rusted hinges, echoing through the still jungle. A musty, stale air escaped, carrying the odor of decayed metal, rotted fabric, and something else that defied description. Their flashlights revealed a dark interior lined with rows of seats bolted to the floor, their fabric decaying and mold-covered. Overhead compartments were left open, scattered with personal items. A faded teddy bear missing one eye, a pair of sunglasses resting on a cracked tray table, scattered passports, and a water-stained journal with handwriting trailing off mid-sentence. Each item served as a haunting reminder of lives abruptly cut short. As the team ventured deeper into the cabin, they uncovered more clues. Torn clothing, rusted pieces of jewelry catching stray beams of light, and even an old watch, miraculously still ticking, wedged between seats. Then, near the emergency exit, they made the most horrifying discovery of all. A small pile of personal belongings, carefully arranged as if someone had survived the crash and lived there for a while. There were cans of food, long expired yet left open, makeshift tools, a crude blanket fashioned from torn clothes, and a rusted knife stained with an unknown substance. Yet there was no sign of any bodies. This unsettling realization led them to wonder. Had someone survived the crash and then vanished into the jungle? Or, worse, could they still be lurking nearby? The tension was palpable as nervous glances were exchanged and flashlights darted toward the dark shadows beyond the wreckage. They realized they were not just unearthing history, they were stepping right into it. Back at their temporary camp, the team carefully spread out all the recovered items, personal belongings, fragments of documents, and most chilling of all, a half-damaged flight log discovered near the cockpit. The pages were damp and brittle, yet some entries remained readable. The pilot's shaky handwriting revealed a growing sense of fear, mentions of worsening weather, intensifying turbulence, and instruments that began to behave strangely, with a note that they could no longer trust the readings. Another entry stated, "Something's wrong, not just a storm. Passengers are panicking, lights are flickering, and the engine noises sound different. I can't really explain it." These words sent chills down everyone's spines. It wasn't merely a mechanical failure. Something else was clearly amiss. Dr. Mitchell and her team compared the planned flight path of the plane with the location of the wreckage. The numbers simply did not add up. The aircraft was hundreds of miles off course, deep in an unexplored jungle, far from any detected distress signals. Theories began to emerge. Perhaps a navigation error, a desperate attempt to land after losing control, or even something more sinister. Among the items was a small leather-bound diary belonging to a passenger named Emily Roberts. Her words painted a haunting picture. "The turbulence is unbearable. People are screaming, and I feel like we're falling, even though the pilot insists everything is fine. I don't trust him. There's something outside the window, but all I see is darkness." Her final entry, written in shaky scrawl, read, "We have either landed or crashed. I don't know where we are. Some people are injured. No one is coming. It has been days now. Something is in the trees." A stunned silence fell over the team. The possibility that someone or something had been near the crash site was deeply unsettling. They were no longer simply handling artifacts. They were in possession of the final remnants of human lives, their fears, their last words, their desperate struggles for survival. As they pieced together the clues, the mystery began to unravel in unexpected ways. The wreckage was not just a forgotten relic. It was a silent witness to events far more disturbing than a simple accident. While examining the fuselage, Dr. Mitchell noticed odd symbols scratched into the interior walls, marks that bore no resemblance to any airline codes or emergency signals. They appeared to have been hastily carved, deep and jagged, almost as if done in a state of panic. Further inside, the team discovered what looked like a makeshift shelter constructed from parts of the plane. Signs suggested that survivors had once lived there. Empty water bottles, torn blankets, and scraps of food wrappers. But something was off. The shelter had been abandoned in a rush. Half-eaten food lay untouched, as if the occupants had fled suddenly or had been taken. Then came the most horrifying find: a worn, tattered journal hidden under debris. It belonged to First Officer Nathan Scott, and his entries grew increasingly erratic with each passing day. On day 3, he wrote, "We have set up camp. Some are injured, but we remain hopeful as there is still no sign of rescue." On day 7, he mentioned hearing strange noises at night and whispers with no one visible. By day 12, he noted that people were disappearing. First Sarah, then Mark, with no evidence of a struggle or any bloodshed. On day 18, he wrote, "I saw it. It's watching us from the trees. It isn't human." The final entry was nearly illegible, smeared with dirt and what appeared to be dried blood, ending with a stark warning: "If anyone finds this, do not stay after dark." Uneasy looks passed among the team. This was no longer just an investigation of a plane crash. They had uncovered something far darker. Could it be wild animals, or perhaps the hallucinations of those isolated by the catastrophe? Dr. Mitchell couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The jungle suddenly felt claustrophobic, with trees looming like silent guardians. One explorer, Alex, whispered, "What if whatever is out there is still here?" His words resonated in the heavy air. After gathering all these eerie details, the team faced a tough choice. Should they keep this discovery hidden or bring it into the light? Despite how disturbing the truth was, the cryptic diary entries, the unsettling signs of disappearances, and that persistent feeling of being observed, it was too important to ignore. That night, as they gathered around a dim campfire with the jungle alive with nocturnal sounds, Dr. Mitchell told her team, "We can't keep this to ourselves. There are families who deserve to know the truth, even if it isn't the one they hoped for." Reluctantly, they agreed. They documented every detail carefully, photos, videos, and notes, making sure not to sensationalize the horror. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a story that needed to be told. Once back in civilization, the team handed over all their findings to the authorities. News of the lost airplane's rediscovery spread rapidly, with major news outlets running headlines like "Mysterious Airplane Wreck Found in Jungle After Decades," and "Chilling Diary Reveals Terrifying Final Moments of Missing Flight." The media frenzy was intense, with reporters speculating wildly, from theories involving wild animals to supernatural forces. But for Dr. Mitchell and her team, this wasn't about fame or headlines. It was about the human lives behind the mystery. Authorities worked tirelessly to identify the remains and personal belongings recovered from the site. For the families of the missing passengers, phone calls reopened old wounds and brought long-silenced names painfully back into focus. Maria Gonzalez, whose brother had been on board, tearfully said at a press conference, "For years, we lived in the dark, wondering if he suffered or was scared. Now we know. It hurts, but at least we finally have some answers." The discovery brought a bittersweet sense of closure, answers wrapped in grief, yet answers nonetheless. The recovered journal, with its final desperate words, was returned to the family of First Officer Nathan Scott. His sister clutched it like a treasured relic, her face showing both sorrow and pride as she whispered, "He was so brave." Over time, the story faded from the headlines, but it left a permanent mark on everyone who followed it. It was more than just a tale of a missing plane. It was a story about lives lived, connections lost, and the echoes of the past that never truly fade. For the team who uncovered it, and for the families who endured such loss, the impact of the discovery would remain forever. In the end, the tragedy of Flight 319 was not in vain. The lessons learned helped improve safety protocols in aviation, making air travel safer for millions around the world. Aviation historian Dr. Jordan Blake remarked during a conference, "This isn't just a story of loss, it's a story of learning. Every mistake teaches us something, and every tragedy leaves a legacy." A memorial was built near the crash site, a simple plaque surrounded by stones engraved with the names of the passengers and crew. For many families, it became a sacred place, a final resting spot for memories they once thought were lost forever. As this haunting narrative comes to an end, we are left with more than just the mystery of a missing plane. This tale serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly the familiar can vanish, and how the past can re-emerge when we least expect it. From a moment Flight 319 disappeared without a trace to its shocking rediscovery deep within the jungle, every detail of this story speaks to human resilience, the relentless quest for truth, and the emotional weight of closure. Now it's time to reflect. What do you think about this gripping account? How do you feel about its impact on both the explorers and the families involved? Share your thoughts and any similar stories you may have encountered. If this narrative captivated you, be sure to subscribe for more real-life mysteries, emotional journeys, and stories that linger long after they are told. Remember to like and share with friends, and turn on notifications so you never miss another compelling tale. Thank you for reading. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and remember, some stories may fade with time, but they are never truly gone.